Okay, so this is part 2 to 10-2, completing the square. This is going to be where we're just doing some more examples, more practice problems to kind of give you an idea of how these work. First thing is on this problem number 7, we're going to actually change this problem slightly. I want to make this a little bit different of a problem. So instead of c squared minus 4c minus 12, we're going to make this a minus 14. So go ahead and change that right off the bat. Make this a minus 14 as our last number. Just changes up the answer a little bit, gives you something I want you to see. So, again, you should have your notes. This is in your notes. You should be going back through those 4 steps to solve these problems. Step 1 is to move my c to the other side. So I'm going to add that 14 to both sides, which creates the blank that I wanted. So I have c squared minus 4c blank equals 14. And like I said, I'm going to actually add a blank to that too, because I know that whatever I add to this side, I'm going to also have to add to this side. So let's figure out what goes in those blanks there. Okay, and we figure that out by taking half of our middle number. So half of negative 4 is negative 2, and squaring it. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. So positive 4 is what gets added into both sides. So plus 4 there, plus 4 there. Which now means I can rewrite my problem. C squared minus 4c plus 4 equals 6, nope, not 16, 18. Okay. Again, at this point, the work's already done for you. You know this should turn into c minus 2 squared equals 18. And again, I know it was c minus 2 because I made it a perfect square by squaring negative 2. So negative 2 is my number there. Now I'm going to solve by taking the square root of both sides. Square root of c minus 2 squared is just c minus 2. Square root of 18. Now this is why I changed the problem, is because the square root of 18 I'm not going to just leave as plus or minus the square root of 18. I'm going to break this square root down. Most of you probably use your factor tree, so let's say 2 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. Your pair of 3's come out, so this is going to be 3 root 2. Right? So, last step in solving here is going to be just to add that 2 to both sides. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. The answer is not 3 root 2. Don't forget it is plus or minus 3 root 2. That's critically important. Don't forget that this equals plus or minus 3 root 2, because it would have been plus or minus root 18. So now I go back and I add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to get, for my final answer here, we'll just write this up here, is going to be c equals 2 plus or minus 3 root 2. Final answer. Now, again, don't forget, give me the 2 rounded off versions of that answer, telling me that means x is approximately equal to something and approximately equal to something else. Because if I was to graph this, I would not know where 2 plus 3 root 2 is and 2 minus 3 root 2. So let's do this on our calculator now. Let's see, root 2. Okay, so the first one, when I do positive 3 root 2, should give me approximately equal to 6.2. And the second one should give me approximately negative 2.2. Again, rounding that off to the 10th, the nearest 10th. So, right there is your answers for this problem. All that right there. Okay, looking at number 8 now. 8 is slightly different, and you'll see why here in a second. We'll start this problem out the same. I am going to add 1 to both sides to clear that spot. So I have x squared plus 5x blank equals 1 blank. Again, filling in those blanks. How do we fill in those blanks? Well, we go through our process here of dividing the middle number by 2, and here's where we run into our problem. 5 divided by 2 is, as you know, 2.5, but I'm actually going to just leave this as positive 5 over 2. So 5 divided by 2 is just 5 over 2, because now I'm going to square it, and squaring 5 over 2 gives me 25 over 4, and that's actually what I'm going to add into both sides, that fraction. So I'm going to add 25 over 4 to both sides. Okay, now, makes it look like it's a much more difficult problem, not necessarily that much more difficult. Again, you should already know this x squared plus 5x and now plus 25 over 4. You should already know what that factors into. And on this other side, 1 plus 25 over 4, well, 1 is going to be 4 over 4, right? So you're going to have 29 over 4. Okay, so again, this should factor in easily because you've already created it yourself. You're going to have x plus 5 halves squared equals 29 over 4. All right, working through the same system here, square root both sides. Again, don't forget, you got your positive 5 halves here because you made positive 5 halves. You figured that out by completing the square. So, going through our process here, of square rooting both sides. So I have x plus 5 halves equals, now as you know, square root of 29 over 4 is the same as square root of 29 over the square root of 4. Well, denominator is a perfect square, so that's good. I can just rewrite this as plus or minus square root of 29 over 2, right? Because that's what how you do a square root of a fraction. Square root of 29 was not a perfect square, left it as is. Square root of 4 was a perfect square, turned it into a 2. I did not need to reduce the square root of 29 because it can't be reduced. You can't break that down into perfect squares that simplify any farther. So you can't simplify square root of 29, but you can simplify square root of 4. All right, so let's bring this up here. So we have x plus 5 halves equals plus or minus root 29 over 2. We'll go ahead and solve this by subtracting 5 over 2 to both sides. So you're going to get x equals negative 5 over 2 plus or minus square root of 29 over 2. And that right there can be your final answer. I'll take that as your final answer. You're still going to have to give me your two rounded off answers. X is approximately equal to something and x is approximately equal to something. Now, another thing I'll say here about this answer is you could simplify this answer slightly because both of the numbers have a common denominator of 2. You could say that this is x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 29 all over 2. In other words, just combining those the like denominators and say that this is your answer instead. A little cleaner, a little easier to read, and maybe a little easier to do on your calculator. And you'll also see problems like this in upcoming sections. Actually, the next section you'll see problems that look like this. But you still do need to give me your two rounded off answers like I just talked about. I'm going to move this up just a little bit here. Give me some room on that problem at the bottom. But you got to do this on your calculator. And again, if you're having calculator problems on how to do this, make sure you're asking me in class. Bottom line is I'll just teach you how to type this into your calculator. Either way, your answers for these two problems are x is approximately equal to 0.2, and x is approximately equal to negative 5.2. So there are your two rounded off versions of this right here. All right, very good. Moving on, we'll do number 9 now. The new thing about 9, and you can see this will be the same in 9, 10, 11, and 12, all 4 problems, and we're probably only going to do 2 of these 4. Because the only difference here in these last problems is that we've not done one where the first number, this a, was anything other than a 1. And there's a reason for that. You cannot do completing the square unless that first number is a 1. So the first step, and again, we didn't add this into our original steps because this is just a special problem, is that your a, that number there has to be a 1. So in order to make it a 1, if you're completing the square, you have to, in this case, divide everything by 2, which changes this problem into 1t squared minus 2t equals 1/2. Now, at this point, you go through the same process as we've done all the other problems. This one's actually one step easier because you already have that blank there to add your c to both sides with. So, you already have that blank set up. They've already moved the c over, which in this case now is this 1/2 over here. But the process will be the same. What goes in that blank on both sides? Well, divide this number by 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So 1's what goes into those places. Plus 1 there, plus 1 there. Now, to save room, I'm going to erase this so I can... And you might start doing that work either in your head or off to the side. I'd be fine with that too. So that means that this problem turns into t squared minus 2t plus 1 equals 1/2. Now again, I'm going to write my 1/2 as 3/2 as an improper fraction because it's going to be easier to deal with at the end. Again, this trinomial turns into t minus 1 squared equals 3/2, and I am going to square root both sides. So I've got t minus 1 equals plus or minus, and in this case it's just going to be 3/2, plus or minus the fraction 3/2, because neither of those numerator or denominators are perfect squares. So to finish up this problem, which we'll move over there, I can show it here right there. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, so I'm going to have t equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 3/2. And I'm fine with that as your final answer. Nothing simplifies, nothing can combine there. You're just done at that point. Again, don't forget you have to give me your 2 rounded off answers. So x is approximately equal to, and x is approximately equal to what? And that'll be approximately equal to 2.2 and negative 0.2. Again, typing that in your calculator. So 10, we're actually going to skip 10, but again, the way you would do this is you'd start out by dividing everything by 3, v squared plus 3v plus 5/3, so equals 0, because you do divide the 0 by 3. So again, same type of problem. You'll move this over to the other side. You have fractions. Again, in algebra, you just have to be able to deal with fractions. So we're not going to do this one. We will do the next one, which again has more fractions, so you will get your fraction practice with the next problem. Okay, so last 2 problems here. Number 11, again, we're going to start this one out by, first of all, making this a 1n squared. So we're going to divide everything by 6, and we're going to turn this problem into n squared plus, and now this is going to be 3/2 in, and then that's already a blank. My last term's a blank because equals 2's on this side. So equals 2 blank. So again, more fractions, more fraction practice. The process is all the same though. I'm going to take half of this middle term. So 3/2 divided by 2 is what? Well, it's actually 6/2. Because remember, dividing by, is 3/4. Because like I said, dividing by a fraction, 3/2, divided by 2/1, you got to remember, dividing means to multiply by the reciprocal. So it's actually 3/2 times 1/2, which is how I got the 3/4. So half of 3/2 is 3/4, and I'm going to square it, which gives me 9/16. So 9/16 is what gets added into both sides. So I write plus 9/16 plus 9/16. So now, rewrite my problem. I have n squared plus 3/2 n plus 9/16 equals, and then 2 plus 9/16 is 41/16. Okay, so again, I know what this binomial is going to be. It's going to be n, and then again I look at what my half of my number was, so n plus 3/4 squared equals 41/16. Take the square root of both sides. N plus 3/4 equals plus or minus. And in this case, again, my denominator is a perfect square, so I'm going to just rewrite square root of 41/4. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 41 cannot be reduced, so you're left with that. So, last step here, and to actually get into the actual real answer, is to minus the 3/4 on both sides and write my answer as n equals negative 3/4 plus or minus square root of 41/4. Again, that could be simplified a little bit by saying n equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 41 all over 4, since they did have a common denominator. Again, giving me the approximated answers here to both of these. Again, not going to go through this. Just do this on your calculator. X equals about 0.9 and about negative 2.4 when you round those answers off. So, there you go. Really, the last problem I want you to go ahead and try on your own after I show you the first step. In this case, the first step, instead of dividing this by 1/4, because you're trying to make a positive 1x, again, same as dividing by 1/4 is multiplying by 4. So you're actually just going to multiply everything in this problem by 4, giving you a positive 1x squared, and then a positive 6x, which is what 3/2 times 4 is, and then minus 8 equals 0. So from this now new problem, go ahead and work this out on your own. The next step, the next thing you'll see is just all of my work shown with the correct answers at the bottom to see if you did this right. So definitely pause it, because it's getting ready to show you just the final answers. Okay, so here's the answer with the work shown. Again, maybe check this, pause the video and check this over. Again, if you're just copying down what I have written there, you're not really trying, you're not going to learn this. This is a difficult section. This one's probably the most difficult of the Chapter 10 sections, so That's why it was a long video, and that's why there's 4 assignments in this section, because you need to practice this a lot. So make sure you're definitely asking questions in class, and obviously we'll be doing lots of board problems and bell ringers to review this stuff. All right, that's it.